Welcome to today's episode of the Staffing Evolution Podcast. My name is Michael Schneider. I'm the owner and CEO of Omega Digital Services. We specialize in helping staffing and recruiting firms grow their business and scale their revenue using the latest AI technology. On this podcast, we dive into the business of staffing and recruiting and learn about the cutting-edge strategies that successful staffing and recruiting firms are using to grow their business today. So if you want to learn about how to take your staffing or recruiting firm to the next level, stick around. And if you're interested in a free growth consultation, drop the word growth in the comments or DMs or hit me up on LinkedIn. My guest today is the handsome and talented Nicholas Ferber, managing partner at ThunCap Technologies out of Hollywood, Florida. Nicholas, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Michael.
I'm glad you could be here. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Even though my name's Nicholas, everyone calls me Nick for whatever that's worth. I'm a give or take 25-year recruiter, headhunter, call it what you like, and have worked at several firms, have built several firms, and do a lot of work in the financial space, as in C-level type searches, including, of course, CFO. I work with almost everyone in private equity, private wealth, investment banking, hedge funds, etc. And then, because I've been doing this a long time, people call me out of the blue that have needs in manufacturing and just in tech, in every conceivable space but engineering. I've done searches, including medical and just like legal, too many to name. But I'm most comfortable in the financial space, which is part of my distant background a long time ago. And I've built up a very nice clientele who pay me well and believe in the work I'm doing.
Nice. What inspired you to start your business?
It's a cute little story. I was a stockbroker. It was around the year 2000, give or take. And I read a book called E-Boys about a venture capital firm in California that was, everyone was Yale this with a Harvard that, Harvard this with a Wharton that. And then there was a guy who had gone to Bryant College and built a $10 million a year recruiting firm. And they brought him on as a full partner to find all the talent for the various early stage .coms, including eBay as their huge success. But lots of exciting stories. They brought him on to find the talent, the people to run the companies, the people to grow the companies, etc. And I had never even considered it as a field. And I read about it and knew lots of people, was good at selling, putting serious people together. And I thought, that's what I do every day. And I took a massive pay cut and left the investment world and became a headhunter with my math's right, with a brand new baby and a kid on the way. And it was scary times. And so when in the various firms I've worked at, some young guy comes to me and says it's tough, or, I'm not making nearly what I thought I would, I tell them about tough times, raising kids and taking a giant pay cut and believing in what I was doing. And not saying therefore their story is irrelevant, but been there, done that kind of thing. Stick with it and turn it into something, or don't. But and I would say that very likely applies to every field that's conceivable, that the people who succeed, with rare exceptions, go through some tough times and take a while to build something special. And it certainly took me a while. So there you go.
Absolutely. Yeah. And tell me a little bit more about your journey once you got into the field and how you came to be in the business that you're at today.
Sure. It's also an interesting story. I was at a large firm based out of Philadelphia, still here in South Florida, where I do all my work. And myself and two others left to start something new and special. And I was there 13 plus years and got disenchanted, various reasons that it's better not to say, and ended up joining two guys I'd personally recruited into the firm I was leaving that had left to start their own firm. So the two partners that I have at my current firm at one point worked under me, but I'm sort of left alone as a rainmaker. So no, I don't have a boss, and I am a partner, but two guys who were my junior, now certainly my equal. And there's good trust and nice work being done, etc. And we built something special, not something big, but something special. And I think that's about the people you surround yourself with and time. I think good things take time.
Yeah. And you mentioned your core clientele is around financial
Anything that
industry.
could be defined as financial, from a controller in any industry, CFO in any industry. Today I got a call, one of my clients needs a fund account, a senior fund accountant, but all things being equal, a fund accountant. And it's a private equity firm and they have this, and this need, and here are the specs, and please help us. And so, yeah, that's where a lot of my work comes from. And in sort of a chicken and the egg kind of way, a lot of my work comes from that space because I've had success in that space. So the people who I've helped in the past reach out to me again and again.
Right. And on that point about client acquisition, are you constantly driving for new clients? You primarily work with existing clients?
I mean, in the spirit of something that's well established, yes, I primarily work with existing, but I'm always looking for new. The ideal new client is a serious, well, I got to stop saying the word serious. The ideal new client is a potential mega repeat client. I have nothing against working with Michael, who says one day I need a this, and this, and we solve it. And for the next 5 years, stay in vague touch and there's never another need. There's nothing wrong with that. But the dream scenario is to build deep relationships with decision makers who are going to have constant needs. And the one thing, other than this book, E-Boys, which I'm sad to say I can't find in my vast library anymore, but I could order it again. The one thing that sort of woke me up in that book is the recruiter guy, David Byrne, who each partner for a 5-year period took home about $100 million, which you can live on. That's decent money. He got in deep with all the venture capital firms because he knew they would have failing entities, sure, but they would have fast-growing companies like a Facebook, like an eBay, and they could potentially keep calling him, we need another one of these, we need 3 more of that, rather than let's find hundreds of clients with the occasional need, let's find 10 with constant need. And I'm here in South Florida. The venture capital community here is small, fragmented, and real, but not significant. The private equity environment here is very healthy and got even more healthy after COVID, and serious firms coming down here from New York, some from California, Boston, Chicago, whatever you like. And they absolutely count as repeat clients because some of my clients have 30, 50, 70 companies that they own all or part of. So to me, that's 30 or 70 chances per given day that we're unhappy with this CFO, this head of marketing, this director of finance, whatever it might be. So it hasn't leveraged to the degree I'd hoped, but it still provided very nice leverage. And what I've ended up doing is much more work with the actual companies directly. We need another VP, we need a principal, we need, they've rushed to get my help, many of these firms, for building their internal structure. They haven't come to me as often as I would have liked for their portfolio companies, which is not to say never, but that's the big leverage. So the funny thing is I got deeply entrenched with the private equity firms. Like I host 2 private equity panel events a year through something on the board of called the Miami Finance Forum. Big turnout, lots of people, more business for Nick, etc. And the entire plan was to get access to the portfolio companies where absolutely they're frustrated with someone in management at one of these firms every single day, but it didn't work out. So I still have a nice repeat business and clients that pay very generously, but I actually missed out on what I was going for, and it still worked out. But the other side would have been more leverage.
Yeah. Sometimes we aim for one thing and we get something else.
That's what happened. Okay. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, good for you. And what is your approach for attracting new clients?
I'd say it's aggressive. That's not what you meant, so I'll explain. But if I read on LinkedIn, on the web in general, see in the paper, so-and-so moved down here, company such and such merged with this or acquired that, or just got 38 million in round 3 funding, whatever it might be, I will track down someone at that company with 90+% success, not on getting a deal and not on closing a deal. I will get the right person on the phone and I'll make it very clear. Here's what I do. Here's work I've done for very similar firms. In fact, some of the firms that invested in you or some of the firms that are your direct rivals, etc. And check me out, look me up, talk to so-and-so who I placed there, and more often than not, turn them into potential clients. Then, and this sadly is the story of my life, some of the juiciest deals I work on every year don't get to the finish line. Some get to the finish line, and the candidate says, sorry, got a better offer, or I've changed my mind. We know how recruiting works. Not everything gets to the very finish line, but I'm good at getting in front of the right people, dropping the right names, and then, frankly, putting quality people in front of them such that I have many clients who for years I didn't close a deal, but they said, Nick sent us the second, third, and fifth place finisher. We definitely need to reach back out to Nick on our next search type of thing. And of course, if you don't get the win, you don't get paid. So the goal is to win. But if you have people in the running, deeply in the running, most companies will say, yes, this person gets it. They get the corporate culture. They get what we were looking for in the specs. Absolutely not. We'll give him another chance, but this is someone we must keep working with, because if Nick keeps getting the second place finisher, it just makes them feel that
he's a serious recruiter.
What's that?
He's a serious recruiter.
But not only that, but we feel even better about Stevie, because Jim, who was a close second, came from Nick. We wouldn't feel, So I've often come in second and gained bonus points. Sadly, not dollars, but if I keep trying, I don't know that it applies to lotteries, but yeah, if you go and shake 50 hands at some investment type event, someone's going to, say, sure, let's go out for lunch or coffee or whatever it might be. And if you impress 50 firms with second and third place finishers, some of them are going to say, we're coming back to you, or sorry, it didn't work out on the CFO. Here's another search we're working on we haven't told anyone about. So I've gained respect, bonus points, and cachet sometimes when I don't win. And of course, I also gain it when I do win, but it works both ways.
Right. Nice. Okay. So it sounds like you kind of keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening.
I try to.
You reach out directly, and it sounds like you've had some good success with that. Yeah. Nicely done. And what about your approach for finding candidates? How has that evolved over time?
Well, I've done something that many recruiters/recruiting firms wouldn't do, and it was maybe 5-7 years ago, and it's definitely just 10% out of the box. But I started working with outside firms. I have about 10 firms that we have no interest in, no financial common ground with, and because there's real trust that's been built, I called 4 firms today when I got my new order to say, here's what I'm working on. And none of them are going to try go around me. By the way, the vast majority of my clients are so deeply embedded with me, you couldn't go around me. I would find out about it. I'd get very angry, would move on. And I'm not even talking about my vindictive side. Just they don't go around me. They're thrilled Nick called them on this order that could be 30, 50, 70,000 in fee. And so to get the punchline, I'm happy to split fees with firms that I trust. Because sure, you could say it was a $63,000 fee and half of it went out the door. Or you could say it was a $63,000 fee. Good job you closed it. And because I'm always the client side, the client thinks Nick's a genius who finds all the good people, even if Michael found the person. I'm not hiding Michael's name or saying he doesn't exist, but Nick found us the winners, the way they look at it. So you get the credit if you're the one who made it happen. I get the credit. I've had numerous closes that I know would not have happened without help, and I've deepened relationships because of it. And excuse me, with it at no cost that I'm aware of. Right. Maybe once in the last 5 years, I had the second place finisher to outside firm XYZ. So you could theorize on a pretty real level, if I didn't get their help, I get the first place finisher and the whole fee. Now, maybe not. Maybe second just wasn't quite good enough. We got to keep the search going. I'll never know. But I really don't look at it that way. I think it's massive leverage because I'm going to real people with 10, 15, 20, 30 years in the business and telling them about the search and getting high quality candidates on the cheap. I don't pay for candidates and the client doesn't pay for candidates. We pay for closes. But if instead of sending Michael one person, I send him 5, the odds of someone getting a meeting or a call back or getting deep in the running are going way up. And of course, I'd rather close everything myself, but it's just not feasible. So despite the tendency to greed, I share. I said the truth.
How do you balance working with those outside firms with, I assume you have internal recruiters. How do you balance the internal and external recruiters?
In maybe the most truly capitalist mindset one could have, which is best guy wins. So no one minds And I absolutely would never go to Michael, outside guy in Philly. I have two people in Philly that I work with that have nothing to do with my firm. But I go to Michael and then a week later tell my firm. That wouldn't be fair. But I immediately tell everyone I want to tell, here's the new search. Here it is in our sort of CRM. Here's a couple blurbs that weren't in there that I want you guys to know. And then I reached out to 4 people today, 4 of my favorite outside recruiters. I've only talked to 2 of the 4. The other 2 have to get back to me. They already have the order. But
so you hand
my
it out to
firm
everybody, and they can all compete. You hand it out to all your people, and they can compete on an equal playing field.
And I'm not playing favorites. I would never even think, whatever shortcomings I have, if you worked in my firm or outside of my firm, to give a little extra or a little, I'll hold Michael's for 2 days because he's outside guy. I rush to get candidates in because any of us find if I held someone up, which someone else could, the client could find that person 12 hours later, or they've every right to post it themselves on LinkedIn. And and it's happened to me hundreds of times in the last 25 years. I send in Michael, the great candidate, and they say, sorry, Nick, got his resume last night. Sorry, Nick, was sent to us yesterday by, one of the partners. So I wouldn't ever, till I'm ready to go, and I like the resume, and I've got a nice write-up, it doesn't go out, however long that takes. But I don't hold up ever, because that's my number one fear. Not missing a deal, but just being a day late and a dollar short on a good candidate. So I rush to get them. I'd rather send a 7 out of 10 that I'm not sure about than hold off on someone, and then be told we already got this person. And it'll keep happening because the web's a good thing and information's easily found. So there are no candidates I can get to others couldn't. That's silly.
Mm-hmm. And how is your approach to sourcing evolved through AI? Are you incorporating any types of AI into your workflow?
It depends how you define it, and I might push back. I'll answer, but I might push back on you to help me with that. The closest I think I come to AI is when I'm posting on LinkedIn and they say, would you like AI to rewrite, and I say, sure. And 5 times out of 6, I like it. It's got a little more pop, or they captured something where but occasionally it's so far off base. They don't get the facts wrong, but you can just do one click back to go back to the original type of thing. But I was asked just a couple of days ago, do you think you're in one of the fields where AI could, in 5 years, eliminate the need for you? And I said, absolutely yes. Not yes, I'm certain, but what do you really pay me a bunch of money to do? To go through hundreds and hundreds or thousands, whatever you like, of people, find the 5 or 10 good ones, show you my favorite 5, and then carry them through the process. So the only thing AI I know could not do today in an efficient manner is tell Michael, this is a great firm. I put people in there for 10 years, and let me have you talk to 3 of them. That I don't think AI is quite ready to do. But could it look at thousands of candidates? Could it source the 10 best that hit on all 10 bullets we're looking to hit on, or 9 out of 10, whatever you like? Yeah. But I was also a recruiter when Monster did its first ad during the Super Bowl, and people thought Monster would take us out. And
it's nowhere to be seen anymore.
Right. But not only that, but if you remember the basis of Monster, Career Builder, all of those, if you post an ad back in the day, you'd get hundreds of crappy responses, and still someone's got to do the filtering. So it wasn't a coup where only 3 perfect candidates responded to your ad. So we'll see what AI can do to us, but I do see how it could hurt our business long term.
So how I would respond to that is, one thing, beyond what you bring in value of just looking at 1,000 candidates, you bring the human connection between you and your client. And you bring the human connection between you and your candidates. And people sniff it out. If they're purely just talking to a robot, they sniff it out eventually, right? The robot says something dumb, and then they get turned off.
Sure.
So it's a really balancing act to have your robot be intelligent enough and not too robotic, but also have it know when to let the human step in. So I predict someone in your shoes, you're safe. You're not going to be replaced. Well, the goal, in my opinion, is to increase the productivity of the people that are already there. if you can make your work 5 times easier, or make your recruiters work 5 times easier, and let them focus on the real high value things, if they don't have to look at 1,000 resumes, and they can have the robot surface the 20 resumes that are just like hit every point of the client. Now you've saved a ton of work. You can
Right.
spend more time talking to your client. You can spend more time on a phone call with your candidate.
I'm going to push back, though. I agree with everything you've said, so that won't be the pushback. But many
Uh-huh.
of the better firms I work with have an internal recruiter who is 100% allowed to work with external recruiters and pay the big fees and all that. But if AI is doing its job, maybe you don't need the external. Maybe internal person at great family office such and such can look at the 20 well-sourced, on-point people and call their 5 favorite instead of not making, but allowing Nick to spend weeks on finding 20 to trim to 5 type of thing. So I'm keeping a human in the story. I'm just
Yeah.
saying it may not be me. So yes, I don't think we're ready to cut out the humans and find the winner, but we might be ready to cut out the recruiters and find
The
the
external recruiter. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. I can see that. Um, how have you seen much of that with the internal recruiters becoming more efficient and less interested in working with an external person?
I haven't, but what I've certainly seen in some of the healthy, profitable, growing companies I've dealt with is they go from a point where they definitely do not have an internal recruiter to where they one day look, whenever you like, and say, well, we paid and we'll pick a number, $300,000 in 2025 in fees to recruiters. Could we hire Michael for 150, give him a $50,000 bonus, and get the same work done? So
Mm-hmm.
little tiny firm that doesn't have the budget, no. Giant firm already has an internal system and is still happy to work with outside recruiters, or if they're not a client of mine. But I have watched some serious firms that have been great clients go from no internal to yes internal, and then trim back on what they're willing to work with me on, not to zero,
Right.
but only searches at this high level. The
Right.
mediums and the lows that might have been $10,000 and $20,000 fees and still nice little bread and butter deals. No, now Stevie does that kind of thing. So
Right.
it's
Or
certainly it's
maybe it
gotten in the
lowers the
way.
bar. Maybe it lowers the bar where it makes sense for them to switch over to internal recruiting.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. Hmm. Okay. Yeah, makes
They
a
at
lot of
least
sense.
think it lowers the bar, and that's dangerous enough. Because now
Yeah.
we're paying Michael 200 grand a year. We better get some value for that. So, Michael, any search below this level, you can't take it to the outside, which means now Nick doesn't get to work on it. I'll sometimes even have a great candidate for PE shop XYZ, and they'll say, yeah, we're not allowed to go outside for only nothing below VP level. Real story, repeated story.
Hmm.
Back in the day, I could have sent them someone, and it could have been a very nice fee, and now I can't. Or I
Hmm.
can send them as a favor, but I'm not getting paid on it. And so,
Right.
the difference between it definitely has opened up the ability for the internal to get the job done. That's up in the, it certainly changed the perception of what an internal recruiter can do. I guess you'd have to ask the firm. No, at the end of 25, we had 28 searches that were never completed, or we got everything done with Stevie, our internal guy. Best move we ever made. Couldn't even tell
Hmm.
you, but both are possible.
Yeah. How did you see the pandemic affecting your business or the industry?
Sure.
And were there any long-lasting changes out of that?
Yeah. Only a couple. So yes, pandemic for us was March 6th. Pandemic for us was March 16th. We shut the office for 6 weeks. Then everything calmed down just enough that we felt comfortable and back we went. And a couple things were discovered. One, I discovered I was more efficient working from home. I was
Mhm.
100% sure that I would be in the worst possible quintile of work from home people. I would be distracted. I would be unfocused. There's the couch, there's the TV, there's the kitchen. Not good. The opposite happened. COVID started and my productivity went way up. I cut
Mhm.
out an hour of round trip driving. I cut an hour out of going to lunch and paying not only for lunch but a tip and who's going with me and who's running late and whatever it might be. So I lost 2 hours of stupid wasted time. And so in my opinion, even if I only turned one of those two into work and the other into hanging out, I was winning by an hour. And I
Mhm.
didn't put in the hour of hangout, so I really won. But so step one of what the pandemic did for me and for many in my industry is we don't need an office anymore. We still have an office, and I've either been there once or not at all this year. I don't remember. And I actually need to pick up some business cards, but do I want to drive 30 minutes each way because I've run out of business cards? I don't know. I have a big networking event tomorrow, and I'm considering it. But the bigger, more lasting effect. Oh, and to answer part A1 of your question, there was a business slowdown and it didn't last very long. Some of the clients within weeks were saying, just send them in, with a mask on and we'll gladly interview them. Some said we're going to interview everyone in, Zoom till the last stage and then we'll find a way. None of my clients said everything on hold. None of them. They had real work going on, and COVID was a massive nuisance, but it didn't prevent PE Shop XYZ from still having to worry about 50 clients. Not clients, I don't know why I keep saying that, 50 portfolio companies. No one's work changed in that regard, and I was lucky. I have no restaurant clients. I had no clients that were directly affected in the truest sense by COVID. That's not to say their people weren't affected, but none of my, the banks and the investment firms and the private equity firms, COVID had no real bearing on that other than from home, don't work from home. They still had assets.
People still wanted to make money.
Right. So lucky me. Didn't even mean it. The many verticals I touch were not affected by COVID. One of my partners had some restaurant clients. They were in huge trouble and certainly weren't hiring. Didn't happen. But the long-term effect, since you asked, is since 2020, 2021, 100% of my candidates say, is this job on site? Could it be remote? Is it hybrid? And I'm so sick of the question, but turns out some of my clients, it's now 4 days a week in the office. Very few are just do it wherever you like. You want to build some cachet and come in the office every day for a few years and then say, I'd rather work from home, and you've made the money and exceeded expectations. Many would say yes. And we have the technology, you and I. We're not in the same room and we're fine. But a lot of these young people, 25, 28, Wharton degree, they want to work remotely and they've not proven themselves. And it's a very strange risk to pay someone real money and then hope they can do the job and not even monitor them in the truest sense. So I don't really like the young people asking is it remote? Can it be hybrid? One of my clients, it's 4 days a week in the office. No one comes in on Friday. Wonderful. That's an adjustment that clearly happened since COVID. That has no bearing today on COVID, but they got the hang of not every day. And I've got many clients where 5 days a week, not necessary, but to want to show up day one as Nike's CFO and come in the office twice a year, not fair.
Yeah, especially at the executive level.
Right. And no one, I've not worked on Nike's CFO, and I don't think that theoretical badass would say, I'm going to come in the office twice a year. But again, a lot of my candidates are amazing up-and-comers in the sort of 28 to 35 range with a couple badass degrees and a perfect pedigree. No, you haven't yet earned the right to show up when you feel like it. Source a huge deal, have a great exit, outwork all your peer group. Sure, then you can tell the company whatever you want to tell the company. But it frustrates me because I have more clients than I have candidates, and the candidates all want sort of some easy way out they haven't yet earned, in my opinion. So
more clients than candidates. That's a good place to be.
It is and it isn't, because it's frustrating when you've got an amazing order and you can't fill it. So I'd argue, yes, it's the better of the two.
Right.
But
exactly.
It's frustrating when there's, call it a $50,000 to $100,000 fee just sitting in front of your eyeballs and you can't get to the finish line. And if you had two more Michaels and a Nick, we could close this thing. So no, I'd say they each have their issues.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. What are your goals for the business for the next, say, 1 to 3 years?
We're not in a growth mode, and that's disappointing to say, but I have massive respect for the theoretical Bill Gates, who at a very young age was worth 300 million, I think 400 million the day it went public in 86, and said, not good enough. I'd have said, where's the nearest private island? I'm done. And I think that's okay too, and just as American. And I don't think he was saying I need to get to 100 billion. I don't think it's about that, but he was a doer. And I respect the hell out of, my friends and colleagues that build and build and build. If you've got something good going on, you may choose to go a different direction. You know, if a Ferrari, Patek Philippe, I'm not saying I'm of that ilk, but I'm saying they're not rushing to sell 10 times as many watches or cars. They like having the cachet and will make a profit on every one, and that's our business. So we don't have growth plans per se. We have two firms talking to us about acquisition or merger. I'll keep you posted on that. There's not much more I can say right now. But yes, there's a parallel universe where every year we added 20 more in headcount, somehow hired so well that they were all productive, and we are now an entity in 7 states with 13 offices. That's not what we've done at all. And there's merit to that. But if you're that person, you're not a recruiter anymore. The people there might be, but you're a manager. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, and you could say Bill Gates is a manager or was in his day, whatever you like. But the 3 partners at my firm are recruiters and are working on serious searches every day and asking each other for help, and we never really offer help to each other, not because we're horrible people. I'm stuck on my searches. I don't have time for your searches type of thing. And okay, with an exception here and there, but really it's the exception. But yeah, my dream that has not been achieved is I'd have a nice big conference table and 20 young up-and-comers and say, here's today's search, and I'd get frantic responses, which I was at a big firm where that's exactly what happened. But the hard thing about recruiting that I've discovered is finding good recruiters, which is a funny sort of, the shoemaker with no shoes kind of thing.
Shoes, yeah.
It's hard to find good recruiters. And I'm going to say this, and we are on the record. I think it's an industry of failure. And I'll be very clear what I mean. I think that the recruiting industry as a whole, a hell of a lot like the real estate industry as a whole, is made up of an absolute ton of people making $30,000 to $60,000 a year, struggling by on 2-ish 3 deals, maybe working out of their house, doing it part-time, helping Uncle Leo find a new director of such and such, and that's their one search all year, because they aren't really recruiters. It's just a little blip they got paid a fee for once type of thing. And I think it's the equivalent of the person who passes their real estate exams and sells Aunt Becky a townhouse in 2023, and that's the only deal closed in the last 5 years. It's not an industry, and I'm thrilled to be an exception. It's not an industry where wow people rush to enter. It just isn't. I've raised 3 kids. I built some companies, and other than 1-ish 2 years in the whole 25 I've been doing this, it's 100% close the deal, get paid. Don't close it, don't get paid. It's a lot of pressure, and it's a hard way to raise a family, and it's eat what you kill, and a ton of people can't put up with that or don't put up with that, or would rather a $60,000 salary and 10% on closes. Well, no, I want to make money, so I'll take the added risk, and I have my entire career. But great people don't tend to flock to our industry. And I know there are exceptions, and I'm in no way attacking all people in the industry, but I think it'd be interesting to look at a poll. I don't have access to this theoretical poll. Average earnings in the executive search space, I think it'd be a tragically low number, because I worked at one firm where I was the main guy bringing in people, and in a 5-year period, we had 200 people we hired that left. 200 people. Some closed a few deals, some didn't. Some one day you tell them you're 28,000 behind on your draw, we got to stop your draw, and they then chose not to stay, and we never got back that draw money, to be clear. But there comes a point where you'd be stupid to stay. Go to another firm and start fresh type of thing, to our detriment, quite frankly. But there aren't a lot of people who can come into recruiting and hit the ground running. They just are not. And I've dealt with the mediocrity of the industry for a long time. It's the main reason I have time to talk to you, and I'm not on my diamond-encrusted yacht, because there aren't that many good people. I wish I could turn to 50 Michaels and say, here's the search, and within an hour have 10 winners and say, wonder which Michael I'll have to pay. That doesn't really happen,
Yeah, maybe that's there's an opportunity there to create tools that
maybe
increase that productivity of the recruiters. Yeah. Okay, well, I have one final question for you. If anybody who's watching this podcast wants to get in touch, how can they get in touch with you?
I'm very easy to find on LinkedIn. Nicholas Ferber, Headhunter guy, a nice picture, me in a jacket with, I think, a purple shirt. We don't need to ponder that, but it's a picture I like. Or nferber, Ferber, at thuncaptechnology.com. No, ThunCap Tech. I'm sorry, I should know my own email address. At thuncaptech.com. And I respond to every email, and I answer every call, and I say yes to everyone who's not crazy on LinkedIn. And we'll define crazy another day. But if it's someone from a very foreign country that I clearly could never work with, I don't say yes. And I get about 10 of those a day. But if you're in the US and you're not yet convicted of mass murder, I'll say yes, like they say in Stripes, never convicted. So,
Right.
So I'd love to, anyone wants to reach out, I'd love to chat about the industry, search needs, what I've discovered that Michael, who's a star, hasn't asked yet, but I'm very available.
Okay. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Michael.